First meetings in 1614 of the French Estates General, representing the French Estates, First Estate clergy, Second Estates noble, Third Estate common people. The Third Estate knew they couldn't vote against the First and Second Estate, so therefore they requested to have double representation. On May 5th, the Estates General was opened by the king. The Third Estate was represented by Robespierre, a young lawyer from north of France, dedicated to defending the rights of the poor. On the first days of the meeting, the king and his delegated stated the principles of the meeting, and to the Third Estate, they realized that the double representation was a sham. Jack Snecker said that the only solution to the financial crisis was to pay taxes no matter what estates they were in. On June 20th, 1989, the Third Estate, which consisted of commoners and low clergy, was locked out of the main meeting room. Because they made up most of the population, they needed to gather and discuss their lack of rights. In order to create a meeting, they gathered and broke into the tennis court. They vowed not to leave until a constitution was drafted. This was declared as the Tennis Court Pledge. The Constitution was aimed to be limiting the powers of the king. Eventually, that worked when the king fled the city of Versailles with the royal family, who was soon caught and beheaded.
On the morning of July 14th, 1789, many Parisians had gathered to steal weapons from the Invalides. They stole 28,000 rifles. However, they had not found any gunpowder. They knew that gunpowder was stored at the Bastille, and thereafter headed to their target. The Bastille, a state prison on the east side of Paris, was attacked by a furious and aggressive mob. At the time, not many prisoners had been held there. However, the mob had not come for the prisoners, but the surplus of gunpowder they needed. Everything that had ensued there acted as a spark to the revolution. The prison had become a symbol of the monarchy's dictatorial rule, and the event became one of the defining moments in the revolution that followed.
On June 13, 1789, the National Assembly was established. The French government was in a big crisis. They have been spending a lot of money on war and trying to defend French territory in Northern America. The French government was in debt, and the only way to pay off those debts was by taxing their people a lot. The French nobility and clergy were exempt from taxation, meaning that they didn't have to pay any taxes. That also meant that peasants were taxed hard. In the 18th century, the French raised food prices, which made it nearly impossible for the poor to feed themselves and their families, let alone them also having to pay taxes. On June 17th, when the National Assembly was established, the Third Estate called an assembly which the First and Second Estates had to attend. The Third Estate got royal approval, which made taxation on the Third Estate illegal.
The Women's March to Versailles was one of the first events that led to the French Revolution. The march began among women in the marketplaces of Paris, who on the morning of October 5th, 1789, were near rioting over the high price and scarcity of bread. They ransacked the town for weapons and marched all the way to Versailles. By the time they reached, they were soaking wet from the rain. The crowd of women confronted King Louis XII violently and dramatically, and they were successful in getting what they wanted. The king reasoned with the crowd of women and distributed all of the bread in Versailles to the women. This march symbolized a new form of balance and power. Some of the crowd got into the king's and queen's room, and the queen nearly escaped. The king announced to the crowd that him and his family were leaving to Paris. It was the most regretted decision the king made.